Alrighty, this is where we left off in the last lesson. We learned all about initializers and how you can have multiple initializers to initialize with different values, etc. We also took a look at the UI color and UI image classes to kind of see what some of these core foundation classes look like on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. We're not going to be using those. And in this lesson, we are going to talk about computed properties, property observers, and a little bit more about methods. All right, so up till now, I have talked about stored properties, which are these guys right here. They store variable or constant values as part of an instance of a class or structure. Now we are going to talk about computed properties, which do not store a value themselves, but retrieve and sometimes set other properties. The value returned may be a result of calculations or other logic. So let's go ahead and write one. We are going to make a computed property for monthly salary, okay? So I'm going to say var, and the way to write a computed property is like this. You give it a name, var monthly salary, then we tell its type, double, and then instead of doing an equal sign or assigning a value, we say curly braces. And then if we don't do anything, we get this right here, this error. Computed property must have accessors specified, okay? So what we need to do is provide what is called a getter and setter, okay? So we're gonna say get and set, okay? So what this is called when we try to access the monthly salary, okay? Called when accessing variable. And this is called when setting the variable value. So what we can do is we can say get, and when we get this, what we're going to do is we are going to return, or in other words, provide a value for the monthly salary as a computed property, and we're going to say return, and since this is the monthly salary, we're just going to return our yearly salary divided by 12, okay? So you see how this is a computed property? It doesn't store any value by itself. It relies on and uses other property values to then provide information. We're going to come back to set here in just a second, but I want to show you how if it is a read-only property, meaning that we're not going to be setting this value, we can actually shorten this whole thing down to just this, okay? And in case you haven't seen this before, I'm going to show you a trick. Say you got your formatting all messed up. If you do Command A and then Control I, it will reformat your code, okay? And give it the proper indenting. And you don't have to do all of Command A. You can just select a few lines and do Control I, and you'll see how that gets set back how we expect it to be. Okay. All right. So with this computed property, monthly salary, let's go ahead and test this. We have down here our dev instance with a salary of $100,000. And let's go ahead and print out the dev.monthly salary here. And let's run that. And you can see printed out here, 8,333. So even though we never initialized a monthly salary of 8,333, because we have this computed property, we can access that. All right, so that's pretty cool. So if you're only doing a get, then you don't need to have the actual get, but let's also see how we can set it. Okay, so I'm gonna put the get back in there because we need that if we are also doing a set. So I'm gonna say set. And if we set a new monthly salary, then that also means that we're changing the yearly salary here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say salary is equal to, and then I'm going to introduce something here called a new value, okay? And so we haven't defined this anywhere, right? If you did a search for a new value, this would be the only place it comes up. And so what this is this is a value that is automatically available when we are doing a setter here. All right, so this is whatever we say down here. If I say dev.monthly salary is equal to, if I say 120,000, then whatever this is, that is this new value, okay? That makes sense? Whatever it is that you are setting, this variable's value to, that is this new value. So we're going to say salary is equal to new value, which is a monthly salary times 12 to set a new value to our salary variable. All right, so let's go ahead and test that out. I'm going to say, okay, so when we start out, we know that our salary is 100,000. But if I change our monthly salary to say 10,000, and then if I print out the dev.salary, we should expect that to be 120,000 now, right? Because 12 times 10 is 120. So if I print that out, then sure enough, now our salary is 120,000. All right, very cool. So that is how computed properties work. Pretty simple. You define it as a variable, tell its type, and then provide getters and setters, and provide whatever you want it to do when they are either got or set. All right, now let's take a look at property observers. Property observers are called every time the value of a property is set. We can add property observers to our stored properties and take actions when the value is changed. We can add two property observers with Swift, willSet and didSet. And just like they sound, willSet is called right before the value is changed, and didSet is called directly after the value is changed. All right, so let's take a look at how to write that, okay? We are going to observe the property of salary here, okay? So kind of the same thing with computed properties. We define the name and the type, and then we do curly braces. And here we have, like I said, those two property observers that we can set. We can set willSet and then didSet, okay? And for now, we'll just do a print statement in each of these. We'll say print, we'll say value about to change, and then here we'll say value, gotta print, value did change. Okay, just clean this up a little bit. And so now whenever we change the value of salary, right before it's changed, we're going to print this out. And right after it's changed, we're going to print this out. So let's go ahead and test that. Okay, so we should be able to just run that right now, because by changing the monthly salary, we are also changing the salary. Okay, so I'm gonna run it, and we see here value about to change and value did change. All right, so that's pretty cool. So now if you have a property that when you set it, you want it to do other things, then you can do that here in its appropriate locations, either right before you change it or right after you change it. And remember down here we have new value, okay? So here in willSet, you have new value available to you, all right? So this is the value that is about to be set to the new value. And then here in didSet, you have old value, okay? And this is the value of the salary variable before you changed it. Okay, so just a heads up that you have those two available to you. What we're gonna do is we're gonna introduce a new stored property, and I'm just gonna say var position. This is like a junior, intermediate, senior engineer type of position. And we're just going to actually initialize this to junior developer, okay? And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of this didSet. We're only going to focus on the willSet here, but just know that the implementation is exactly the same. The only difference is that this is called right before the value is changed, and didSet is called right after the value is changed, all right? So we're going to say that when the salary changes, we're gonna do a check. We're gonna say if the new salary is greater than or equal to 120,000, then we're going to change position to senior developer, okay? So we can say if new value is greater than or equal to 120,000, then position is equal to senior developer. Otherwise, it's just going to stay as a junior developer. And you know what? Let's go ahead and create a new method down here, and we'll say func. And this developer, he's going to request a raise. So this function is called request raise. And here I'm going to introduce something called internal and external parameter names. All right. So when you call a function, sometimes it makes sense to have a little bit of a different parameter name. It just makes it more readable. But inside of the function, you want something more concise maybe, okay? So for instance, here I can say request raise in the amount of, and that makes sense. So when you're calling it and it says request raise in the amount of, and then you just put in a value. But that's not really, it's kind of wordy when you're working with the inside of the function. So then internally, we can use amount, and then we can say double, okay? So now when you call this function, so let's just call it right here, dev.requestRaise, and you see that it says in the amount of, but inside, we just use the amount internal parameter name right here. So that's pretty cool. I think that's very useful, makes your code more readable, understandable to the user that is using the function. Okay, gonna get rid of all of these print statements here. All right, so when we request a raise in the amount of amount, what we're gonna do is we are just going to take our salary and we are going to increase it by the amount that is being requested. All right, so we're going to say salary plus equal amount. Okay, so this is taking the salary and adding to it the amount. And when this happens, we are setting the value of salary. And so our property observer is called. And we're going to take a look at the new value. And if it's greater than 120,000, then we are going to change our position to senior developer. All right, so let's test that out. All right, so here we are initializing our developer with a salary of $100,000. Let's go ahead and say after the first year, our developer requests a raise in the amount of, say, $10,000, okay? Now, let's go ahead and print out dev.position. Okay, so his current salary is $110,000 now. And so when the salary was changed, this condition was not met, so the position remained junior developer. All right, so our dev's been there a while. He's going to go ahead and request another raise, and this time it's going to be in the amount of another $10,000. And this should put us at $120,000. So now if I print out our dev.position, we should see that we are a senior developer. Hey, there we go. So we were junior developer after we requested the first raise, but after the second, we went over 120. And so this condition was met and we changed our position to senior developer. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this lesson. Just to recap, we learned how to create a computed property, okay? And that is a property that doesn't hold a value in and of itself, but gets and sets other properties. And then we also talked about property observers. Using will set and did set, you can monitor when a property value changes and perform some sort of action based on those. Will set is called right before the value is changed, and did set is called right after. And lastly, we took a look at internal and external parameter names and how that can make your code more readable to those using your functions. All right, so hopefully this was a good introduction to classes and you understood everything. If not, then I would highly recommend just going back and rewatching these few lessons again, all right? So in the next lessons, we are going to start talking about structures, which are similar to classes but have some important differences. So I'll see you then.